Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another deep dive. I want to start with a bit of a puzzle for you today, something that sounds like a total nightmare for any chemistry student. Imagine you're in the lab, you have this beaker, and it's full of what looks like a single substance. But your teacher comes over and says, no, there are actually 15 different chemical elements in there.
Right.
So you try to separate them. You add a reagent.
Yeah.
They all precipitate together. You try to crystallize them. They all form these crystals that look exactly the same. You check their reactions, and they all react in the exact same way. It feels like a prank, isn't it? I mean, how can 15 different elements be so identical?
It does sound like a nightmare, doesn't it? But what you're describing, it's not a prank at all. It's actually the defining characteristic of the group of elements we are exploring today.
The lanthanoids.
The lanthanoids. Okay, this is from Unit 4, right? The DNF block elements. And honestly, this section often gets a bit ignored. Everyone just focuses on the transition metals. But we really need to understand this, don't we? Absolutely. While these elements seem, chemically identical or uniform, they are actually the secret behind so much of our modern technology.
Really?
Yes. If you're listening to this on a smartphone or looking at any vibrant screen, you are relying on these elements. But from a chemistry point of view, they provide such a perfect contrast to the transition metals. So let's unpack this mystery of the F block.
Okay, let's do it. So we should probably start at the very beginning. For a Class 12 student who just sees these two rows of elements sort of floating at the bottom of the periodic table, what's the simplest way to understand what a lanthanoid actually is?
At the simplest level, the lanthanoids are a series of 15 elements. They start from cerium, which is atomic number 58, and they go all the way to lutetium, atomic number 71, and they sit in what we call the F block.
Okay, F block. So that implies something about where the electrons are going, correct?
Correct. Specifically, the incoming electrons are filling the 4 orbitals. And this is where all the magic happens. Or you could say the lack of chemical magic. Because unlike the transition metals, which are so diverse, the lanthanoids are chemically very, very uniform.
I found this comparison really helpful to visualize it. Like, imagine a music band. The transition metals, the D block elements like iron and copper, they're like a rock band.
Mm-hmm.
You got a drummer, a guitarist, a singer. Everyone's doing something different. Iron is magnetic, copper conducts electricity.
Yes, that's the D block, diverse personality.
But the lanthanoids, they're more like a choir. Every single member is singing the exact same song, wearing the same uniform. Maybe one is singing slightly higher or lower, but basically they're all doing the same thing.
That is a beautiful visualization. And it leads to the next question, why? Why is the choir so uniform? It all comes down to what's really happening inside the atom.
It's about the particle behavior, isn't it?
Right.
Where exactly are these electrons going?
Precisely. In these elements, the new electrons are entering the 4 orbitals. Now, if you can, visualize the atom like an onion with layers. You have the nucleus in the center, and then you have the shells. The 4 orbital isn't on the outside. It is deeply buried inside the atom.
So wait, you have the nucleus, then these 4 orbitrons, but then there are other layers on top of them.
Yes. They are shielded or kind of covered up by the outer electrons, the 5b and 6's electrons. Because these 4 electrons are hidden so deep inside, they are effectively locked away. They just don't participate in bonding.
Okay, so the outside world, other atoms, can only really see the outer electrons. And since those outer electrons are mostly the same for all 15 of them, they all behave the same way chemically.
Exactly. So for your exams, here's your anchor definition, the one you need to remember. The lanthanoids are a series of 15 elements, from cerium to lutetium, that held the 4 orbitals and exhibit remarkably similar chemistry with a characteristic +3 oxidation state.
That +3 is the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
I feel like this is where students often get confused. They think, oh, it's a metal in the middle of the table, so surely it acts like iron or manganese and has lots and lots of oxidation states.
That is the biggest misunderstanding trigger. Students assume lanthanoids behave like transition metals. They do not. Transition metals show variable oxidation states because their d electrons are on the surface. They are available for bonding.
But for lanthanoids?
For lanthanoids, no. Their 4 electrons are shielded, so they almost exclusively form that +3 state. They are chemically uniform.
So if a question asks why lanthanoids don't show the same variability, the key phrase is shielding of 4t electrons.
Ideally, yes. Deeply burrowed and effectively shielded would be a perfect answer.
Let's stick with that identical twins idea for a second, because I think it really helps explain why this concept even exists.
It does. Think of the transition metals as a diverse classroom. You have iron, who is the sports captain. You have copper, who is the artist. They all have unique personalities. But the lanthanoids, cerium, praseodymium, neodymium, all the way to lutetium, they're like identical twins in that same school.
Right. Identical twins who wear the same clothes and get the same grades.
Precisely. Without special tools, you simply can't tell them apart. And historically, this was a huge problem. Chemists knew these elements existed, but they couldn't figure out where to put them in the table or even how to separate them. The concept of the Pfeff block explains why they're so similar.
Okay, I want to try a mental movie here. I love these picture this moments. Listeners, if you can, just close your eyes for a second.
Go ahead, let's build the model.
All right. Imagine a long row of 15 boxes sitting on a table. From the outside, every single box looks exactly the same. They're all painted a kind of pale metallic gray. And on the outside of every box, there's a big label that just says +3.
Yes. That represents their common oxidation state and their appearance.
Exactly. Now, inside each of these boxes, there's a hidden drawer. This drawer is the 4 orbital. In the first box, cerium, the drawer has just 1 coin inside. In the next one, 3 coins. As you go down the line to lutetium, that drawer gets fuller and fuller.
But here's the twist.
The twist is that the drawer is locked deep inside the box. So no matter how many coins are in that hidden drawer, it doesn't change how the box looks or acts from the outside.
That is the perfect way to visualize it. The chemistry is all happening on the outside of the box. The physics, the electron count is changing inside the hidden drawer. Because the drawer is hidden, the chemistry stays uniform.
And that leads to some real headaches in the lab, right?
Let's talk about observable phenomena. We said at the start that separating them is really hard.
It is incredibly difficult. This is the separation challenge. If you take a solution with all these lanthanoids mixed together and say you add hydroxide to precipitate them, they all form hydroxides at almost the exact same time. Their solubilities are nearly identical.
So you can't just filter one out and leave the others behind. No, you cannot. And unlike with transition metals, where you might get a blue solution for copper and a pink one for cobalt, lanthanoid solutions in a simple lab setting are often just, well, pale pink or even colorless. They don't give you those easy visual cues.
But we did say we care about them because of technology. You mentioned smartphones. How do we even use these identical twins if they're so hard to separate?
Well, once we do separate them, and it is a very tedious process, they are incredibly useful. We use them as phosphors.
Phosphors. Okay, those are the materials that light up, aren't they?
Yes. Elements like europium and terbium are used in your smartphone screens and fluorescent lamps.
Wait, hold on. I thought you said they don't really have colors.
In simple aqueous solutions, they don't. But when you put them in a solid state and hit them with UV light, something amazing happens. Because of a phenomenon called the lanthanoid contraction, which just means there's a very slight gradual change in their size, we can actually tune the light they emit. So europium glows a sharp, brilliant red. Terbium glows a bright green.
No way. So the red, green, and blue pixels on my screen, that actually involves lanthanoid chemistry.
It does. The lanthanoid contraction means the size decreases gradually across the series. This allows scientists to select the exact element that gives the exact color they need. It's a brilliant application.
That is actually really cool. It's like they're boring in the beaker, but they're having a party on my phone screen.
That is one way to put it.
Okay, I want to tackle a counterintuitive example before we get to the exam lines. We said they are +3, but surely there's a student out there thinking, come on, they have electrons. Transition metals use their d electrons to be +2, +3, +4, all the way to +7. Why can't lanthanoids use their fellow electrons to be +4 or +5?
It is a very natural assumption to make. You might think that having more electrons means having more options, but actually, no. The reason goes right back to our hidden drawer analogy. The 4f electrons are just too shielded.
They're too deep inside the atom.
Exactly. Pulling an electron out of that buried 4 shell takes a huge amount of energy. It's just not worth it for the atom. So the atom simply loses its outermost electrons, the 6s and the 5d, to form that Ln ion. It just can't reach those deep electrons to do what iron or manganese can.
So iron is like a loose change jar where you can grab coins easily. Lanthanoids are like a safe that's been welded shut.
That is a very good way of thinking about it. That's why their chemistry is so much simpler.
Okay, we've covered the core concept, the analogies, and the examples. Now for our student listeners, this is the part where you grab your pen. We're going to do the exam-safe clarity lines. What are the absolute must-know points for the board exam?
Let's break this down into 5 key points. I'll say them slowly so you can really register them. Point number 1 is the range. The lanthanoids are the 15 elements from Cerium, CRC, atomic number 58, to lutetium, Lu, atomic number 71. You have to know the start and end points.
Cerium to lutetium. Got it. This is important because questions often ask which element starts the series.
Correct. Point number 2, the common state. All lanthanoids predominantly form the +3 oxidation state. This is the most important distinction from transition metals.
Right. Transition metals are variable. Lanthanoids are +3.
Precisely. Point number 3 is the Y, shielding. Their chemistry is uniform because 4f electrons are effectively shielded by the outer electrons and do not participate in bonding.
That's our hidden drawer concept.
Yes. Point number 4, lanthanoid contraction. There's a gradual decrease in ionic radius across the series. This is called the lanthanoid contraction.
And why is that important again?
It's important because the slate size difference is the only reason we can separate them at all. It causes those tiny differences in properties like solubility, and it is caused by the poor shielding effect of the 4 electrons themselves.
Okay, so lanthanoid contraction means size decreases because of poor shielding.
And finally, point number 5, color. Unlike transition metals, lanthanoids do not typically form colored complexes in the visible light range when they're in simple solutions. Their electronic transitions are weak, so don't expect the vibrant colors you get from D-block elements in a standard lab test.
Clear, concise, and straight to the marks. I love it.
If you know these 5 lines, you are safe for this topic.
So let's wrap this all up with a really short summary. If someone just tuned in, what's the 30-second version?
Here is the recap. First, think of lanthanoids as the identical twins of the periodic table, that's elements 58 to 71. Second, the core idea is buried 4 electrons. Because they're shielded, they don't bond, which results in a uniform +3 oxidation state. Third, keep that mental image of identical boxes with hidden drawers. The outside looks the same, which is the +3 state, but the inside, the 4, changes. And finally, the key exam term is lanthanoid contraction, which is that gradual decrease in size that lets us separate them and use them in our technology.
Perfect. Friends, next time you look at your phone screen, just remember there are some hidden lanthanoids working very hard in there. They might be the boring twins of chemistry, but they make your Instagram feed look great.
And here's a thought to leave you with. If the 4f electrons are so hidden and shielded, imagine how much harder it is to study the next row down, the actinoids, where the electrons are a bit less shielded, but everything is radioactive.
But that is definitely a story for another deep dive. Thanks for listening and keep learning.
Goodbye, everyone.